This video is about two stories. The first is the Sony FX30, an APS-C censored cinema camera. We've got known specs and a release date. The second story is about the much anticipated Sony a7R5, the successor to the a7R4. We've got updated specs on that one, including some surprising ones, as well as a release date. Details coming. But first, I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. The Sony FX30 is going to look like the FX3 with a similar body design. And as far as resolution goes, it's pretty well the same as well. The FX30 is going to be 12 megapixels. The FX3, 12.1 megapixels. But the difference ends there. You see, the FX3 is a full-frame censored camera. The FX30 is going to be an APS-C censored camera. So what about other specifications and pricing? Well, let's get to the pricing because we don't have any other rumored specifications, and this is quite interesting. The price of the FX30 is supposed to be around $24.99, the same price as the Sony a7R. That's right, $24.99. That's about 40% less than the FX3, which sells for around $38.98. So definitely cheaper, and that's definitely a benefit to many. So using an APS-C censored sensor gives you a cropped look on this camera, which is very similar to a Super 35. And when is it going to be available? This month. It's supposed to be announced in September. I wouldn't expect an announcement today or Friday or even Monday or Tuesday as we've got the Labor Day weekend. But as we start to move into more of next week, we could start to see announcements later on in the week. We're definitely getting the Fujifilm X Summit early next week. And then we start to see some Sony and Canon announcements. But that's it for the Sony FX30, a very interesting camera. What do you think of this? I'm quite interested in it myself. When Sony came out with the a7S III, I was very, very interested in that camera, as well as the FX3. Shooting with a Canon R5 at the time with its overheating was just unmanageable, especially in hot climates, and the FX3 stood out as a clear winner. Now that Canon's fixed their overheating with firmware 1.6, well, Canon's actually got a foot in the race. So around $2,500 for the Sony FX30, an APS-C censored camera. And now for our second story. We've been waiting for the Sony a7R5 since the a7R4 came out in 2019. Well, we probably haven't been waiting that long. Usually once we get to about 2 years, that's when we start to get itchy for new cameras. And that's probably because we're seeing the competition come out with new cameras, we're seeing new features, and we're looking to see some of those features in a new camera. Now, one of the things most interesting about the Sony a7R5 is the sensor size. It's supposed to be either 61 megapixels or 95 megapixels. That's really interesting. That's a huge difference. The current camera, the Sony a7R4, has a 61 megapixel sensor, and it's Sony's high megapixel censored camera. Going up to 95 megapixels would certainly set it apart from a lot of other cameras on the marketplace. When the a7R4 came out in 2019, there was no such thing as 45.7 megapixels. We didn't have the Nikon Z9. We didn't have the Canon EOS R5. Well, now there's a lot of competition for that 45, 50 megapixel camera. We've got the Sony Alpha 1 at 50 megapixels. So if Sony just kept the camera at 61 megapixels, that would truly surprise me. Now, obviously, we're going to have updated sensor and an updated processor, and this camera is going to be able to process a whole lot more information. If it is just 61 megapixels, that would allow something like 9.6K oversample 4K and 8K. But if it goes up to 95 megapixels, keep in mind that previous iterations of the a7R haven't been about video, but stills, high resolution stills. And to go to 95 megapixels to me would make an awful lot more sense. So when are we supposed to be getting the a7R5? Well, in October. So it looks like we could have a very interesting fall for Sony customers. The FX3, a cinema camera, to be announced in September, and the a7R5 to be announced in October. But that doesn't mean that's it for Sony. There are several other cameras to be rumored, another full-frame censored camera as well as an APS-C censored camera. Could we have those coming in September or October? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors, make sure you subscribe and choose all notifications so that way as soon as I publish a video, you can stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors. But before I end off this video, I want to talk to you guys about a live stream I'm planning on doing later this week or on Sunday. With the rising prices of camera gear, both Sony, Canon, Nikon, and others, I decided to go out and do a little bit of an experiment today. I took the 24-105 with me and I decided to treat it as a series of primes. 24mm, 35mm, 50mm, 105 millimeters. And what I wanted to test and see for myself is that 35mm f1.4 lens that I was looking at getting for the EF mount. Do I really need it? So I treated this as a prime lens. I shot many different focal lengths, and one of them became the one I used more than anything else, and that to me makes sense to be the prime that I should focus on. So I don't want to give away everything right now, but what I'm planning on doing, Sunday at the very latest, have a live stream where I talk about my experience going out and shooting with the 24-105, but treating it as a prime. And what do I mean by that? Well, I would set it to, for example, 35mm and then keep it at 35mm and try shooting different scenes. I would try 24mm, then I would try 50mm, and I'd go through the different focal ranges. And if I couldn't quite frame what I was shooting, I didn't adjust the zoom. I actually walked towards or away from. And of course, I made sure that things like the sun was behind me and all that sort of stuff. I don't know what it was about last week, but I got the idea of a 35mm lens in my head. And I'm talking about wide open 35mm f1.2 or f1.4. Canon doesn't currently have a 1.2 35mm, and it actually doesn't have a 35mm for the RF mount in the L series. However, they are selling a 35mm f1.4 version 2 USM lens on the EF mount, and it's around $2,000. It's certainly not cheap. I started looking at used versions of that lens, and well, I can definitely get it for cheaper. But then I thought to myself, wait a minute, I've already got a 35mm f4 in this 24-105 f4. And that's when I thought, let's go out and film with it and see if I really do need a 35mm f1.4. And if not, I end up saving myself a couple of $1,000s. So that's what I'm planning on doing in a live stream. Let me know in the comment section down below if you'd be interested in a live stream like that this weekend. All right, that's it for the news and the live stream that I have planned. One other thing, if you've been watching this channel for a good long time, please do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That makes a huge difference. Believe it or not, a lot of companies, when they look at sending out gear to channels, one of the things they look at is the level of engagement, the number of subscribers that a channel has. And now that I've reached 30,000 subscribers, that makes a big difference. But getting to 40, getting to 50, and eventually up to 100 makes a huge difference. So please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.